The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board in the Toronto GTA area, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Worldwide, 1-866-656-5477. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Down the Garden Path, where we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA. With me again this evening is my co-host Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media, emails, or phone calls.
That's right, and we want to thank you always for joining us here on Down the Garden Path, and to let you know that you can also check out past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app. We release it a few days after our live show. We release it as a podcast, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you'll be notified every time new content comes up. And like, share, or leave us a comment. And we'd love you to tell your friends, of your fellow gardening friends, all about our podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us here.
You said, again.
What do you mean? Oh.
Matthew's joined us again.
Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. That's so funny.
She's itching for a guest, right?
Yeah. No. No, I think we have more fun when it's you and I.
She meant all your wonderful listeners. Thank you for joining us again.
No, he was talking when I introduced him. Matthew's joining me again. He's still here. He's sticking it out. He's putting up with me, right, Gary?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, a friend on the way here, she's like, because I always chat with a friend on my drive here every Monday night. And she's like, how long have you been doing that again? And I'm like, November will be 5 years. And she's like, no way. And I said, yeah, Gary, every Monday night, you've seen me for 5 years almost. So Yeah, so 3 years with the radio show, and you've been with me for, almost 3, I think, right? And then we did podcast 2 years ago, so.
Has it been almost 3?
I know.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I'm totally not kidding.
Well, we'll have to do something special for 5 years.
Yeah,
in November.
we'll see what we're going to do, for sure. So thank you, everybody. We hope you enjoy. And we love your questions and your comments. So don't forget instudio101@gmail.com.
Yeah, write us in. Have you been listening to Joanne for the whole 5 years?
I know. Or how long, or how do you listen to us?
long?
I'd love to know if there's people that listen both live, and if you miss us live or can't listen to it all, if you pop onto the podcast. Love to hear some feedback.
Yeah, I've always wondered that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So what are we talking about tonight, Matthew? There's lots of stuff to talk about. It's September. It's been beautiful. It was a beautiful weekend.
Isn't it though?
I know.
The wind today was a little crazy.
Was it?
Yes.
I was in the car most of the day. I snuck away. I jumped on a chance to go. My husband had a business trip to Montreal. And so I, last minute Thursday night, said he was leaving Friday morning. I'm like, yep, I'm coming. So yeah. So I spent Saturday at the Montreal Botanical Gardens.
And how are they?
I have to say, so anybody listening from Montreal or from anywhere, I mean, I've seen a lot of botanical gardens. I'm certainly not a world traveler nor a world expert, but I have to say we were blown away. Like, the gardens were phenomenal. We did not come prepared to stay as long as we stayed. We did not have water. We did not have food. We end up finally having to leave at 3:00 or else pass out because, not because we ran out of things to see. My husband likes geocaching as well, which is a whole other show. I don't know if you're familiar with geocaching, but there are geocaches, so he was able to we did some of those as well.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so that was, but the gardens, the shade gardens, they had vegetable gardens, like massive vegetable gardens, all the vegetable display gardens. Unbelievable. They even harvested the cauliflower but left all the big leaves, and harvested the cabbage and left. So all that food went to obviously to the community organizations, all the food that they were growing, but they really had it as an educational, so the kids could see. Even one whole section of the vegetable garden was cereal garden. So to show the kids all like amaranth and corn and all the
common grains and
that
other,
go into cereal.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, it was so well done. I cannot.
That's impressive.
Cannot speak highly enough.
Hats off to them, because that's something we need a lot more.
Oh
of.
my goodness.
People don't know where these things come from.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So they had that massive garden for vegetables, and then they had a separate medicinal garden. It was separate. They had toxic plants, which were separate, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was really educational. That was kind of like the one end of it, kind of on our way out. Yeah, I mean, all of the gardens, the Chinese garden, Japanese garden, shade gardens. Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Wow. So yeah, we were, but no, it would be nice because they had lots of rest areas, lots as you were walking, because you're really far, right? When you're walking from the entrance in, lots of really nice shaded water fountains, picnic tables, rest areas, but it was all under the premise that you brought your own food, which we brought nothing. So there was once you were way away, there was nothing.
Right.
And then when we were back at the entrance, yes, there was a restaurant, but then you're car's right there. So you might as well go, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was food or a little snack bar, even vending machine, something, we probably would have stayed longer.
Even a restaurant further out in the garden.
Yeah, something. But lots of people, obviously the locals or people who visited before, lots of people having picnics. It was such a beautiful day. Lots of families, lots of thermoses, and even the Chinese, my husband's like, I just want a pot of tea and walk around. And I'm like, yeah, there's nothing. So it was we just had no idea it would be that extensive, and that we would love it that much. So yeah, we can we don't want to talk the whole show about that, but that was my my Saturday. So yeah, got a lucky quick trip to Montreal.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be prepared when I go, because I haven't been to them.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
been to Montreal.
Good. Yes,
I've
definitely.
been to Montreal, but not the Botanic Garden.
Yes, highly, highly, highly recommend it. Honestly, the Royal Botanical Gardens in London, Montreal, London did not hold a candle, not even in the same realm
Really?
as Montreal. Honest to goodness.
Ooh. Ooh, well, now I'll have to compare it to that
Yeah.
in Chicago because I quite enjoy the Chicago.
Did you like?
Botanic
Yes,
Gardens.
that'd be interesting to see. Okay.
So
Excellent.
we're talking about something we've been teasing on the show. We've been
That's
touching
right.
here and go as we get closer to the time to be planting it.
Right.
But we haven't really talked about it. Tonight we're going to take a deeper look at this plant.
Okay.
Did you see any growing in that one particular?
You know what? No.
There you go.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't think to look at it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah. So for those who are wondering,
What we're
are
talking about.
going to talk about garlic.
Excellent.
Right.
Perfect. Because little do people know, one, that they can grow it themselves.
Yes.
Right? The garlic that you buy at the grocery store that you cook with every day, you can easily grow it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And two, now is the time to plant it, not the
Right.
spring, right? All the other vegetables we have to do with May long weekend and in the spring. So these are two woohoo things. Yay, we can do it now.
That's it. We're super excited. And you're very right. A lot of people don't know that. And I get this question every fall by multiple people. Or every spring, by multiple people. Where can I find your garlic?
Oh, right. Because they want to plant it in the spring.
They think it's planted in the spring.
Yep.
And it's like, no, that was in like November.
Yeah,
Like, was it we sold
September,
out,
October,
like,
November,
a long
yeah.
time ago.
For sure.
Right. So, so now is the time to be planting your
Absolutely.
garlic. I even brought in my two varieties here
Yes,
for us.
even though we're not on video, you can hear.
There you go. That's a little bag there. To poke at it and look at it and have fun with in the studio.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about garlic. So if you have anything you want to share, any tips, tricks, experiences, have any questions, feel free to join the conversation. You can always write us here at instudio101@gmail.com. And you can reach Joanne and I anytime. Joanne at down2earth.ca and Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca.
That's right. That's right. But we're excited to talk about this topic. And I think it's, I know it's taken a few years. Remember, like it was just a few years ago where all the garlic in the grocery stores came from overseas, right? And so it's been consumers asking constantly. I know I had to ask at my grocery store that I didn't want Chinese garlic or European garlic. I wanted Canadian Ontario garlic, and he said, we do too, and lots of customers are asking for it, but it's literally not on our sheet, so we can't even order it. And it was really, I think, consumers pushing their grocery stores to get it, and everybody was willing to pay more. We just wanted better quality, better tasting, locally grown, support local. And so now it's kind of a standard. Like now it's very rare. You'll still see those little sleeves of those tiny little bulbs of garlic from China. But other than that, I'm really impressed that I think it's been a consumer-driven thing.
Yeah.
And as much as our grocery stores can buy it locally, we can grow it.
We can grow it
Yeah.
fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the garlic comes out of China and then later California.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people do ask as well, can you grow the regular garlic from your grocery store?
Right. That's a very common question.
Yeah, in your garden. Yes, but you don't really want to.
Right.
Because it's really not hardy enough for our zones. It's been
Right.
usually treated with a growth suppressant.
I think that's the biggest thing,
And
right?
that's
It's
the
been
biggest
treated
thing for
with
me.
Yeah, it's been treated with something. The Chinese garlic, we don't know what kind of both China and the US, like they have other chemicals that we don't even have.
Right.
So there's reasons to not do it, but I think you're going to have less success because they've also been treated with growth suppressants because they've probably been harvested quite early and then shipped,
And
right?
then
Like
shipping
all of our
in the
vegetables.
spring. Exactly.
Yes. So instead you should go to your local garden center and purchase seed garlic.
Yeah.
Right? Is it technically seed garlic?
Yep.
Now, with an exception. Now, what about if you were buying Ontario garlic from, let's say, a farmer's market? Do you think you could use that?
Probably, and I would ask. Most of the farmers markets they're not going to use the suppressants. You're probably buying it fresh enough that they're not doing it.
Right.
And a lot of them are like under local pressures for, growing organically or more sustainably. That's kind of the draw for them, or one of the allures of that farmer's market and growing local. They probably aren't doing anything like that. So again, timing being correct, you probably can save it and make sure it's all good. But definitely ask the people who are selling it there for sure.
Yeah.
And that's half the appeal of the garlic and how it's been so just kind of grown is that there's over 1,000 cultivars of garlic worldwide. But when it comes down to it, it's really who's growing what locally, because it's the culture and the cuisine of the areas that
and
are
the
driving,
hardiness, no?
and the hardiness,
Yes,
exactly,
yeah, okay.
that are really kind of driving which cultivars are used where and why.
Right.
So,
because I would think California and Texas, like with the longer growing seasons and the hotter summers, they would grow a different type of garlic than what we can grow, right? So definitely I could see that. So so ask at your garden center or at your farmer's market, but before it sells out, because it will sell out at the garden centers, now is the time to go. You still have time, you have a window to plant it because we still have quite nice temperatures, but it's usually good to stock up. And any mail order places, you could probably still order from there. They'll tell you yes or no as well, right?
Yeah. And buy early from them, because they are usually shipping further than your garden center. Like your garden center is going to be a local or more local area. The big companies can ship wider, so they have a bigger draw in them. So get those varieties that you want really quickly. Yeah. And like you said, stock up. It's not going to...
Yeah.
I've got my packages still sitting here. I'm waiting to harvest my potatoes. They're going to go into that container.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I still have to wait 2 more weeks for those potatoes to final.
Right.
Before I can do it. So we've still got time.
Yes. And I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm hoping to get some of mine, because I've decided to do that as well.
Yes.
So, yeah. Excellent. So what else do we want to talk about? So the growing conditions, we want to go,
Yeah, we kind of started with like growing conditions and planting time. So we'll go. Ooh, did I mix up my pages? No, but they're there. So the growing conditions. So if you're going to grow your garlic, you do want full sun. You want, it's kind of like a rose or a tomato, just lots and lots of sun. 8 hours is best for growing it. Partial sun is tolerable. I grow tomatoes, and my potatoes are massive. So I think I'm going to be quite successful with my garlic.
Okay.
I'm going to do it properly this time.
Yes.
We talked about it in past falls. So hopefully I'm going to have enough sun. But I'm also on a balcony, so this will be interesting.
Yes. And I did some reading that if you have a bit less sun, so maybe 6 hours versus 8 hours, 8 hours is best, but then you just need to fertilize a little bit more to compensate. They need a bit more. So probably play with that. But the cool thing about it, and I've grown it myself in amongst my flowering shrubs and, stuff like that, it's fairly innocuous looking. It doesn't really, it's not like a tomato plant or a zucchini plant that goes crazy. I mean, you can plant it even in your front of your garden, in your front of your yard, right, where there's a full sun, and plant it in between things. It doesn't take up a ton of space, and it's pretty innocuous. Is that, or conspicuous?
Are you thinking
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a word. Inconspicuous. So, so it's something that very easily to grow if you don't have a vegetable, spot for a vegetable garden.
Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Definitely.
One of the keys with your growing your garlic is definitely your very well-drained soil. They like well-drained, lots of organic matter, but they will not tolerate wet feet. So if you don't drain it, they're just not going to do it. They're going to go. They're going to go.
Definitely.
So,
no, I was just going to say, Ron has written in a question. Yes. And we're going to get to that answer. But Ron, thank you for your question. So you're asking, can we grow garlic indoors in the winter? And from our research, no, not necessarily. We can grow it in containers, which we're going to talk about. And we also do know, we did some research that you could put it literally, and we'll get to this again, but since Ron asked the question, put it in the fridge for 8 weeks.
Yeah, we were talking about overwintering
it. Yeah. So there's a few different solutions, but actually growing it in the pot, in the house, in the warm temperatures, Ron, no, because it needs to be kind of like your flowering bulbs, right? It needs that rest period that's froze, like where it's chilled. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, and we're gonna do a deeper dive shortly about that.
Well, certainly.
Yeah.
Ray, right on the tail of Ron here. Hi, Joanne and Matthew. Just a general question for you. Is it too early to put down lawn and treatments yet? If not, what should I put down? Live in the GTA. Love your show and advice. Thank you, Ray. The short answer is no. Keep going. You're good, Ray. You can still put down your stuff. Nematodes.
His question is it too early?
Yeah.
No, it's not too
it's
early.
It's not too early. You're kind of just approaching the middle part of it.
Okay.
We're almost at our winter stuff.
Okay, so fall. So for fall, just like a fall, organic fall fertilizer.
Hit your fall fertilizer now. It's chill time, and then at the end of October, hit your winter.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. Oh, and this is very cool, Rachel. Rachel's written in and she says, "Hello, I'm a new listener from Welland, Ontario. I love the show. Very interesting. Great job, Rachel. I'm from Welland. Yay! Shout out to Welland.
Hometown.
I know, hometown. I mean, I haven't lived there in 35 years, but that's where I'm from. So so thank you very much. Winnie, oh my goodness, Gary. People are logging on. Hi, I love your show. I missed your show on apples, and I wanted to listen to the podcast on that. Could you please give out that information? Absolutely. So if you subscribe, it is loaded. So you can check it out on either our website. So go to downtoearth.ca. /podcasts, I think, or if you see the website, it'll say podcasts. And Matt, it's on yours as well, right?
Yeah, I think mine's naturalaffinitydesigns.ca/listen live.
Okay, and or if you follow Down to Earth, or you've subscribed to Down to Earth podcast on your podcast app on your phone, then it'll be there. So you can search for it there. And we have the little Susan edited a video. We'll get to garlic. We'll get back to garlic, everybody. But we had a live show. We tried to do a Facebook Live, if anybody missed it, on apples with Susan Poisner, and she edited it down. I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet.
Yes, but I heard it was very good. So that's cute. So you can actually see us. You can hear us and see us. But that little video is in the link as well. In the show notes. So thank you, Winnie. I hope you enjoy it.
Yes.
And tonight, everybody, we are if you're just joining us, we are talking garlic, and that the fact that you can grow it yourself, and that now is the time to plant it with a harvest in June or July, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
So we were just going over, again, if you're just joining us, some of the growing conditions. So we're saying we need full sun, 8 hours, well-drained soil. Something with high organic matter is best. So if you do need to, amend it with a high-quality compost. And it's easy to do. You can just add a half an inch to 1 inch to 2 inches and just work it into the top few inches of your soil there. But we do need that well-drained soil, because they will not stand soggy feet, and they will perish, unfortunately.
And I've read, literally, if you pick up the soil in your hands and if you squish it into like a little ball and it stays in the ball, then your soil's too wet. Like it's like kind of an old school test.
Yeah.
But that if it's that sticky and easily to compact and kind of stays in that, then there you go. It's too wet.
There you go. Yep. So do your little soil test. Garlic also hates wind. So overly windy spots where it's constantly being hit and attacked by wind can bother it and stress it out and slow her down as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the main growing conditions. I guess two other points of note is the pH. If you've got a really low pH, maybe you've got lots of evergreens in your yard or around your veggie garden. It does like a pH of 6.2 to 6.8. Most plants like a slightly acidic soil as well. So you're probably pretty good.
Okay.
And then the only other thing is it doesn't like lots of weeds. Weeds are quite vigorous growing and like to compete with your garlic. So they often recommend making sure your beds are very well weeded as you go or as they're planted.
Do you think other plants growing around them would?
And I was thinking, because like you were saying, it's inconspicuous in the garden. Yeah, definitely for those interspaces, I wouldn't be putting it like right up against your.
For sure.
Yeah, and no one would plant like that anyways.
Yeah.
So I thought like you're definitely correct. And those little spaces that are in between plants, and you've got that interspace. We were talking about using ground covers as mulches a number of shows ago, so that could be one of those things. Yeah, for sure. But they don't like a high vigor competition.
Right.
Too much, too close, too crowded.
Okay.
They do like to be a number of inches away from each other.
Okay.
Yeah. They tend to be kind of like tomatoes. They can be generous feeders.
Ah, okay.
Right. So when they get out,
that's why soil and fertilizer are important.
Right. You're a rich compost and nice fertilizer for sure.
Okay, and there's also, so when you're looking and ordering garlic, they sometimes have, as much as there's that many cultivars, there are a few different varieties, right? Soft neck and hard neck.
That's right.
Would they be called more like categories, I guess?
Yeah,
variety?
like categories or types.
Okay.
Yeah, of the garlic. So what does all of this mean?
Yes.
Most of the ones that we're going to see in the garden centers, especially in the northern regions, they're going to be your hardnecks. So the ones that I brought today, they're hardnecks. They produce larger cloves. They anywhere from 4 to 8 cloves. So when the clove is planted, because that's what we're going to plant, they grow up and become the full bulb. We know we break apart our little garlic from our grocery store into cloves. So the full bulb of a hardneck is going to give us 4 to 8. They do produce scapes. So the flower stalk basically is a fancy word for it.
Yep.
But they can produce little bulbils or little whatever you want to call it, little bulblets or garlic bulbits or whatever. Most people will cut them off. There's a theory that if you cut them off, it gives more energy to fatten up the bulb. A lot of research is being done, and they're still out. The jury is still out on that one. It's still kind of half and half on that one.
Okay.
But if you've got, and our mutual friend Larry was growing garlic, and he was saying to me that the garlic that he was given like ages ago, he's running out of it. So he's going to have to save more. But the little bulbils or little bulblets from the scape you can save for your planting of your cloves for like the later season. So anywhere from that August, September, October.
All right.
You can plant them like little seeds every once in a while.
Okay.
Or wherever. But it takes 2 years for a full bulb to form.
Oh,
so if you're running low on your variety.
Right.
It's a way to save it, but keep that... keep eating your garlic if you're getting low kind of thing.
Because I have done it. I've grown it for the last few years, and I haven't, when I harvested, I meant to take a picture of my sad little, what I harvested this year. It was very small, and I was thinking it was a couple of reasons. One, that now that area is getting more and more shaded, like my hedge is a little taller. So I was thinking when I first did it, it was more sun there, but I think now, and even though I've done it interspersed between plants, the plants are getting bigger and shading it. I also haven't been really fertilizing or feeding it.
Right.
And the third thing was I was late. The scapes look so cool. Like they kind of grow up and they kind of spin in like little circles.
Yeah.
So it's a cool feature in the garden. It really looks really interesting. And I've been late. I've been like, walking past on my way to the car somewhere and going, oh, I've got to cut those off. Oh, I've got to cut those off. And kind of left them on too long, I thought.
Right.
So when I harvested this July, I was really disappointed on how small everything was. So I think, trial by error, right? So I think, I don't know which one of those, or it was a combination of the three.
Right.
But yeah, the research that we should really remove the scapes. So, yeah.
There you go.
But you can, I didn't know this, if you remove them early, not when I did it late, because then they became all really tough. But you can actually, you can even buy them in the grocery store. People fry them up in some butter, cut them up in butter and salt and kind of garlic scapes, and they can be a side dish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So you're getting 2 things out of one plant.
2 edibles out of one, exactly.
Yeah.
To add some to a summer stir fry. Yeah, Larry was saying that he cuts them off. He doesn't keep them, and he chops them up or minces them up and then spreads them amongst any of the trees or shrubs or annuals that he knows they're often like drawing insects, or if he has an issue, he can make it a spray and just kind of repel things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Wallace is written in. He says, hi, very interesting topic. However, isn't it just as easy to go to the store and buy garlic? It seems like a lot of work for just a small bit. Thank you. Love the show. Well, I have to agree, Wallace. One, I think, first of all, people started doing it because we couldn't get local garlic at the grocery stores. So I think it kind of drove people to start experimenting with growing garlic so that they could, grow their own food. But I think you'd say the same thing about tomatoes, right? You ever see the meme about, all the work to grow tomatoes to save, $2.37 or whatever on a jar of tomato sauce, right? So I think any vegetable, it's easier to go to the farmer's market or the grocery store. But I have heard that when you grow it yourself successfully, which I have yet to do, it tastes like nothing else. Like it is really pungent and really flavorful. It does lose a lot of flavor when it's shipped from other countries.
That's what I was going to add on the end of what you were saying. Yeah, the main thing a lot of people definitely rave about is the flavor that comes out of that homegrown garlic. It's unparalleled to the store stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where you get all the excitement and all the different cultivars and what goes into what cuisine, and
Yeah.
all the chefs have different cultivars that they prefer to use over regular garlic and that kind of stuff. So it does come down to like a flavor thing. It does seem like a lot of work.
Although
but-
compared to other vegetables, like I have to say, Wallace, like compared to growing tomatoes or peppers or things that, you're having to stake like cucumbers and zucchini, and I mean, you plant it and then forget about it, really, because we're planting it right before the snow flies, and then they pop up kind of June, and you're like, oh, what were those again? And I've had people actually accidentally weed them out of my garden and stuff. And then so I find out of anything, it's actually probably pretty easy.
Yeah.
Although, considering I haven't been super successful, I guess I, partly easy, Wallace. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your question.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the hard necks are the ones that we're going to find.
Okay.
They don't store as long as soft necks, and a lot of gardeners will sometimes plant both, just because the soft necks. So the soft necks just have a better storage,
Oh,
a
okay.
shelf life for
Okay.
longer winters or very colder areas, like more northern regions type things.
Okay, and the one we get in the grocery store are most likely soft necks as well, right?
Exactly,
The smaller
because
bulbs.
they just store so long. And
Okay.
then they're from China or California, where it's a much longer growing season. It's warmer. And that's where a lot more of the soft neck varieties are usually found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So soft neck, soft neck, just the softer stalks. So they're just that long, softer stalk. It doesn't produce escape. These are the varieties a lot of people like to braid together and make
Okay.
those braided chains of garlic you see kind of curing in the shed or the or the kitchen or
Farmer's
whatever like that.
market,
The
yeah.
farmer's market. They tend to produce smaller, more numerous cloves. So like 10 to 20 or 12 to 20 little bulblets or cloves. Sorry.
In a bulb. Like
In a
big
bulb.
bulb. Okay.
Right. Most grocery stores, yes, it is the soft neck. And you're usually seeing things like the silver skin or the New York white, just the classic garlic bulb you'll find in the grocery store. Yeah.
Okay. But for us in northern climates, we are pretty much growing the hardneck.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So I like I was saying at the top of the show, we even have some in. I have a hard neck called elephant garlic. So it's a massive bulb. Like these cloves, like one clove is is probably like bigger than some of the bulbs you'll get in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll produce anywhere from like 3 or 4 cloves, additionally. And it's massive, and it's beautiful, and it's flavorful, and then just enriched with whatever you're going to grow your own garden, right?
And this package came with 3 Russian red, and it's like a purple striped hardneck, and there's 3 bulbs, which have like probably...
I think I counted 5 in each.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
about
5 cloves.
Right.
So, and everybody, we're planting the cloves. You're not planting the whole bulb like a tulip bulb. You're breaking it open.
Right.
Trying not to peel off too much skin and planting the individual cloves.
Right.
Perfect.
Oh, Elise has written in, are you folks Italian? Great topic. Where's the pasta? I love pasta. I haven't had it for so long. Thanks, Elise, for writing in. But no, we're not. Most people say I look Italian, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I have to do one of those genealogy tests.
Yes.
Did you want to read, Carla?
No, sure, Carla. Oh, thank you so much. So, Carla says, hello. Just want to thank you, the both of you. My garden has never looked better. This year, I tried to listen to your show every week when I could. It took quite a bit of advice from both of you. Loved your advice on so many subjects. I always go back to your podcast for a review when I need to. Thanks again for all the free advice. And as I say, my garlic looked amazing this year, Carla. Thank you so much, Carla. It's nice to know. Sometimes that's the one thing, right? We never know who's listening, who's out there. So we love and love the fact that you're listening on both mediums too, right? So that you're listening to on the show live as well as going back to the podcast. So thank you very much, Carla.
Yes, thank you, Carla. We love hearing that you're successful and we're helping some people out there. And
yes.
That's why we do it. We just have a passion for it and love to share it. So.
I know.
And you read the last line and it says, my garden looked amazing this year, and you said garlic.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, sorry. As I say, my garden looked amazing this year. So, Carla, getting ready to plant some garlic, and we're all going to have this experiment together.
Exactly. And you're
Excellent.
welcome very much too, Carla. So we were just touching about breaking apart the bulbs and
Right.
planting them.
Mhm.
So what does that look like? So just like you were saying, the bulbs, the cloves are all wrapped together in one big bulb, and we're going to break them apart, and we can break the skin of the bulb when it's all together, but we don't want to take any skin off of the cloves.
Like you would do when you're cooking, right? You would peel that clove.
Right.
Right? So you don't want to do that if we're planting it.
Right. When you're planting it, that's that little baby tunic, and that's going to be its defense and help the skins and then
That's
underneath
cute,
the soil.
baby tunic.
Yeah. So we want to make sure we keep that.
All right.
So when are we going to plant it? End of August to early September, all the way through October.
Okay.
But it is best to do before the first hard frost.
All right.
So, like we were saying, break apart the cloves. When we plant them, we are going to put them, each tip should be 2 to 4 inches deep below the soil surface. So we're not going to plant these really, really deep. They are more of a semi up just above the surface or at the surface kind of thing. But we're going to plant them 4 to 6 inches apart.
Right.
So each of the cloves.
They want a little bit of space.
They need a little bit of space. Remember, that little clove is going to grow up into that big bulb you just broke apart. And we don't want the bulbs to touch underneath the soil. They can actually rot. And it's true about like tulips and other things too. If they're too close, they can start to touch and they can start to rot or get damaged on that spot.
Okay.
So we don't want to do that. If you're going to grow them in rows, if you're very advantageous and you're going to grow lots, or maybe you do grow lots, it is recommended to plant 30 centimeters or a foot apart, the rows and cloves, and 10 to 15 centimeters or 4 to 6 inches again apart from clove to clove.
Okay.
Right. I think we were saying
Now, I
that.
did do some research, and really to get yourself through the whole season, I mean, you really do have to plant a lot. So,
You
back
do.
to Wallace's point, where you're probably, if you're just trying to buy a package or two and just try to see how it goes, that's going to get you a few bulbs, right? But it's certainly probably not going to get through your whole. It depends on how much garlic you cook with. We're a big garlic cooking family.
Yeah.
We go through a lot of garlic. So I think you really have to, there's people with really large vegetable gardens and lots of rows to really get a whole year's supply of it.
Yeah.
So you're right. This is kind of just a supplemental thing. Or just to see if you can do it, right? It's kind of one of those things. Just like peppers and tomato, you know what I mean? Like, we can 2 pepper plants, and you're gonna have a few peppers for summer barbecue, but you're still gonna buy peppers for the whole year.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
it is one of those
exactly.
things. Unless you're one of those diehards with those massive, 30 by 30 vegetable gardens,
Fill it up.
right? So yes, so that is good. So the biggest thing, I think, on top of, making sure they're not touching, making sure we leave the skin on, up or down, little pointy top, because I've read both. Did you see that too?
I didn't.
Okay.
But I do know that, like other bulbs, I
Right.
mean, it is pointy side up because the basal plate is where the roots emit from,
Right.
and they'll grow down. But she will find her way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if in doubt, plant it on its side, just like a tulip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
They know
figure it out.
gravity. They'll actually turn and they'll go up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is cool to know. So fertilizing, so make sure you've mixed the soil probably before you plant it, right? That we've added, good layer of compost mixed in with the soil, as well as, but then after we've planted, mulch is also really, really important.
It is. Yes, we want to mulch and just protect it from that freeze-thaw cycle. Keep some of the moisture that's in there, so it'll help not overwater everything.
Right.
But also just keeping those weeds down as well.
Okay.
So mainly from my research is just the freeze-thaw cycle.
Okay.
They can be heaved out of the soil and or damaged. They are like an underground thing. They can get exposed to too much sun and take a burn.
Okay.
And then they won't really regrow again.
Oh,
So
okay.
just if you do mulch it, you just want to do a light mulch. So something like some light leaf debris or some straw is very common, or even some pine needles, some composted pine needles as a mulch. And we're going to leave it on all winter long. And as we get through in the growing season, things are going to warm up. We're just going to peek underneath the mulch. And we should start to see the little green, the tops start to grow through. And as they're growing through, you can kind of push away the mulch and reveal them and let them continue on their way.
Okay. Excellent. So that's if you're planting in the ground. So we also did some research for
Yeah.
those of us like you who has a balcony, and me who grow quite a bit in pots because our vegetable garden is very small. You can grow garlic in a container.
Yes. And that's where my garlic that's here in the studio today is going.
It's going.
It's
in
going to
a
go.
container.
And you had mentioned too, and I think we were mentioning, I wanted to say maybe Ron, at the top, we were talking
Yes.
about overwintering the garlic.
Right. Well, because Ron asked if we can grow it indoors.
Right.
So no, you can't grow it indoors, but we can grow it in a container on your patio or your balcony.
Yeah. And you had mentioned to Ron that we would put it in, you can put some in the freezer for that 8 to 10 weeks, or the fridge, sorry.
Yep.
And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put out half my garlic in the container.
Okay.
And then put half in the fridge for its winterizing.
Okay.
And then see who does better.
Huh. And I'm going to do some in the ground in a sunnier spot and some in a pot as well.
Nice.
So we will see. So as far as the pots go, the key is that it has to have drainage holes. So kind of going back to how in the garden, it doesn't want the soil to get super wet.
Right.
And be soggy. So, which is a challenge with when it's in a container, usually it's like at two extremes, right? It's not wet enough or it's too wet.
Yeah.
So really you need a container that has drainage holes.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be super deep necessarily. If you are able to keep it in a sunny location near a wall and you're keeping it out, let's say in your backyard, it doesn't have to be too deep. But if you are on a balcony or you could also move it to, if you don't have that situation, you could move it into an unheated garage. But if you are growing like you are on a balcony where it's going to have a bit of wind, a bit more exposure, then it definitely should be a bigger pot.
Yes. And
even though we're not planting it that deep, the pot should be bigger.
Yeah, and my pot is like a 90-liter nursery pot.
Wow.
It's like 2.5, 3 feet wide, and like probably about 30 inches deep.
Okay, excellent.
So.
And you will leave it on the balcony,
and
right?
I leave it on the balcony.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's got full sun all year.
Yeah. So then the next thing for you is to maybe put something underneath, because it's on a balcony. They said to actually protect it because it's not on like a cement floor or a hot patio that's going to collect the heat, right? You want to insulate it kind of underneath the pot, as well as probably thicker than you would if it was in the garden mulch. So I think you want 2 to 3 inches because you really want to protect it from that freeze thaw, which is more likely to do in a container than it is in the garden. Right. So we're mulching in the garden to protect that. But I think when it's in a container, certainly your size container is good. If you're doing small containers, then you definitely want to mulch. You quite possibly want to maybe pick up an old wool blanket and kind of use that to insulate it. That type of thing. And I keep thinking about Wallace's comment about this is a lot of work. But it still seems like fun, Wallace. So yeah. So those are the tips for growing in a container. But I think it's great to know that we can grow it in a container. There's a lot of city properties where you don't have the room for a vegetable garden. So many of our vegetables we can grow in containers. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, all those things that we can grow grow in containers. So it's nice to know at the end of the season when you're taking those tomatoes out of the pot, you can put garlic in and kind of reuse that pot. Although, the garlic's going to stay in there longer than when you need it for the tomatoes in the spring. But aside from that, it's okay.
Yeah. Rotate your pots.
Yes. But soil is also really important, more so now if you're in a container, because now you've got a mix of probably potting soil, right? So I found one recipe that recommended 1/3 cup of dolomite. Is that how you pronounce it?
Dolomitic.
Okay. That it?
Yeah, dolomitic lime.
And 1/3 cup of fertilizer, like a 5-10-10. Totally recommend organic in that situation, with 5 gallons prepared soil. So that's kind of your ratio. So if you're using a 10-gallon, then you can go up a little bit more on the other 2. But so definitely, because they are heavy feeders, we want to make sure. I probably wouldn't do straight soil, like potting soil. Probably mix with what will you do? Will you mix with a compost, do you think?
Yeah, and my containers on my big veggie container, like my potatoes that are in right now, is I just mix in large amounts of compost into it. Yeah, I think in the very beginning, a number of years ago, I did potting mix, and I just kept adding more compost to it. That it's almost probably pure compost at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's great. So
there's
yeah.
lots of luck for me yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. We'll have to play some container ground experiments. We'll have to have garlic to follow up.
Right, for sure. And we'd love to hear if anybody out there who is growing it or planning to grow it this year, would love the feedback on that.
Yes. Have you grown it in containers? Have you been successful? Have you not been successful? Let us know in studio101@gmail.com.
That's right. And I definitely recommend the website here. Garlic Growers Association of Ontario.com for those of us that are local. I think even outside the GTA or outside Ontario, the website has some really great advice.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic resource.
Mm-hmm.
For
I'd
sure.
love to know because we have lots of people that are in more warmer states. I'd love to know, what is the growing season in California or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It'd be very interesting to know. So what else do we need to know before we get into the end of our fertilizer? We're reaching the last 15 minutes.
I know.
So we talked about fertilizing.
Oh, this is we talked about fertilizing, and the other thing we talked about insulating, and this was interesting. If you've got the natural coir, those coconut husk planting shells kind of thing, right? They can also be used for insulating. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
And would they be insulated like I would plant like the coir husk thing and then put so many inside of it?
No, I thought of laying that on top, like instead of the blanket or instead of mulch, putting that on top of the pot.
Okay, so
as insulating it. Yeah, so something that's kind of organic that's going to break down anyway, because those things don't last very long.
No.
So that's something in the fall, instead of tossing it, keeping it. I bet you could probably use it as mulch in the garden as well. For the winter, and then in the spring, toss it.
Yeah.
Recycle it, compost it.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got all this garlic. Oh, we've got Helga writes in. Let's jump to Helga. Hello, first-time listener here, listening from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You have a beautiful show. Very nice. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Helga.
Yes, thank you, Helga. Thank you for the comment.
Wondering if
That's
you
very
grow,
kind.
do you grow garlic in Oklahoma?
Yes.
There's definitely warmer temperatures there.
For sure, Yeah.
So
and what variety? That would be very cool to know.
That would be very cool to know. So there is lots to do or looking forward to our show. So for anybody who's wanting lots of tips for your October garden or your fall garden, we're going to be our regular scheduled segment or show next week, right? October in the garden.
I can't believe it's October.
I know. It feels like we just did September yesterday, didn't it?
It does.
Yes.
Pardon me. Yes, it does. I this year is just flying by.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely tune in for that next week. Lots of tips and down-to-earth tips. And I think the week after that, we're going to continue our discussion with bulbs. And we're going to talk like growing exotic spring bulbs. The more unusual ones.
Right,
Not the tulips
right,
and the daffodils.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about some different bulbs. You can
Did
grow
I
for
jump
spring
ahead?
flowering.
Is our October in the garden show not next week?
No, you're correct.
I'm
And that's
correct.
what I mean,
Okay.
And that's the next show after that.
Okay. Sorry. I'm like, oh no, did I mess up?
You did that.
For sure. For sure.
So, just as we finish, we've got all this garlic that
Right.
we've been growing all season long. And we do want to see, how do we harvest it? How do we know when it's time to pull it out of the ground? So, harvesting. So,
Oh, right. That's a very important part.
that's an important part.
Yeah.
So you'll see this big long stalk that comes out of the ground, and it'll send out little side shoots, these leaves that are somewhat flat. And one goes left, one goes right, one goes left, one goes right, and it grows and gets you a big tall, that's like the upper part of the plant.
Okay.
So when do we know that it's ready under the ground? When it starts to lose like 2/3, the bottom third to 2/3, or half of its leaves start to die away and die back. So
And
it'll
kind of go
start-
yellow, right? Don't they go yellow?
Right, they'll start to go yellow and then they'll start to go brown, and that's the point. And it'll go from the bottom up to the top
Okay.
as it dries out and goes. And when you get to that halfway mark, that's when you want to dig not pull
Yeah, I learned that too. Yeah, don't
them out
pull.
of the garden.
Mhm.
Right.
And almost like with a claw, or not necessarily with a shovel, because you might be cutting into them.
Right.
Right? So you want to dig and kind of scoop out carefully, pitchfork, that type of thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Just something that can penetrate the soil with very gently and just kind of lift and tease it out of the soil. You can grab the stalk of the plant and kind of use it while you tease it to remove it from the soil as well.
But yeah, you gotta have to resist the urge to pull it like a handle.
Yes.
So that they don't come out.
they don't. And you don't want to damage all those beautiful, nice cloves.
That's right.
Yeah. One of the things, you just pulled it out of the ground. You're going to have all those roots emerging from the basal plate. You're going to have soil all around your bulb there. You just want to shake and tease off gently the soil.
Okay.
You don't want to wash.
Wet, no wet.
Right. Remember, it doesn't like wet. That skin is still from under the ground. You can cause some issues with the skin and the way that it's actually going to cure.
Okay.
You can damage it. Right. If you pull it up and then you find some undersized cloves, which maybe didn't develop, you can kind of do the curing thing with them, but you can then just replant them.
Oh,
They'll have another
okay. So
basal
maybe I
plant.
should do that with my ones last year that kind of didn't grow too much.
Yeah. And if you
okay.
dig any this year that are just kind of...
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. And then don't leave them out in a hot... You don't want to give them out direct sun.
Right.
You can sunburn your garlic, and that will damage the skin.
And even the
cloves.
humidity, like you should bring them in the house, right? Into the basement or something like that, not keep them in like the warm garage.
Right.
Okay.
You got it. Yeah. So we want going into curing and storaging. So you shake off the dirt. We're going to store it for 2 to 3 weeks in kind of you don't want humid, right? But just kind of like an 18 degrees. I wouldn't say it's really warm, but just...
So probably just in the house, right? Where you have the air conditioning on or whatever, right?
Exactly. With good air circulation, we want them to dry out.
So don't
and
stick them in
start
a
to cure.
drawer in your cupboard.
Right. A nice attic or the top inside your shed or where you might dry other flowers.
Right.
Type thing.
Okay.
Yeah. After the 2 weeks, you can then brush the additional dirt off of the soil. It'll dry. You can kind of just gently rub your fingers around it, brush it off, and that'll all come off.
Okay. And then you can cut the stalks too, right? Can you do that?
Correct. And then you can remove all those stalks from your hard neck cultivars. If you do have the soft neck cultivars, you can leave them. You can braid them. You can hang them. You can do whatever you want. Or you can just cut them off too and throw them in with your garlic. And you're storing it in a cool, dry spot. And to keep it over the winter.
But you can use it, right? So after that 2 to 3 week period, you can then start using it, right? It's not like we have to wait.
No, we're waiting like 8 months to do something else again.
Okay.
We can use it right away.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And then that's going to happen, like we were saying before, anywhere that June, July, depending on where you are. If you're in cooler, you might be a little later. If you're in warmer, you might be a little earlier. Or again, a different time, depending on where you are.
Or the season,
variety. Right. What season it is.
That's where we're waiting for it to go yellow and to brown out. So it's not a magic date.
Right. There is no, you can't say like October,
June 15th or something like that. We can't say that.
Right.
So that's good.
And then we're going to wait till that September, October again, about this time where we can start planting it again. But again, before that hard frost. So keep some of the small ones that maybe didn't fully develop or just kind of, you can replant them. If you got some small cloves as you break apart your garlic to plant again, you can use them right away to eat them. Keep some of the bigger ones. They'll be bigger, fuller. They're more energized. They've got a lot more stored food, so they'll grow up to become a nice, bigger, fatter bulb and help you speed along with that one.
Excellent.
You can also use them in like the elephant garlic. They're massive.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. So that's good. Good. And I will ask, we talked at the top of the show to ask, we did say that we don't recommend you buying the garlic from the grocery store and using that to plant. We don't recommend. There would have been growth inhibitors, or the soil or the varieties may just not be hardy for our climate because we don't know where that garlic came from. But you potentially could get maybe garlic from the farmer's market. And our Tuesday is a farmer's market in Pickering. So if I get there tomorrow, I may ask that.
Yeah, ask
and
if
see.
it's
I'm kind of curious. They may say no because they want you to buy there, versus us growing it themselves. Who knows? Who knows? But So that's great. And we're definitely excited to talk. I know we've got some new listeners here that are writing in about questions for our fall garden. So we've got a few minutes. Well, should we answer those?
Yeah, let's take a look. So
Excellent.
we've got Joyce writing in. Hello, regular listener to your show when I can listen. Thanks, Joyce. Anything special that we need to do for our perennials in this season? And we are going to talk a little bit more about it next week with our October in the garden.
Thanks, Joyce, for tuning in.
Most certainly. So tune in then. But also, if you can, and you can listen to it as a podcast. But generally, we don't like to hack everything back.
Right.
And,
It's
and
kind
remove
of
all the
yeah.
stuff.
The new trend now, Joyce, is to actually leave it unless it's diseased, unless there's something there's mold on your peonies or your phlox or mildew. After the frost, I find after the frost hits the hostas and they go all yellow and mushy, I like to clean those up.
Yeah.
But that it's really recommended now to leave the stems of the perennials, leave the echinacea on the stems, all the birds that are eating from those. The insects, the native bees that are hiding. So all those stems that we used to cut because they look kind of a little unsightly, lots of beneficial insects are actually wintering in them.
Yeah.
And we're realizing that this movement of cleaning up the garden or putting the garden to bed was actually contributing. Certainly the pesticides were the bigger factor.
Almost certainly.
but there was, so there is this movement now, and you'll see a lot of it in social media. Really, we're not, somebody said to me once, you put a baby to bed, you leave the garden alone. It was very blunt, and really, so in nature, in the forest, in the, everything just does it itself. So you want all those leaves to kind of break down and fall down, and really it's lower maintenance. Everybody who listens to our show, we think, want lower maintenance. So we're saying, leave the interest, leave the hydrangeas, that type of thing, definitely. But we'll talk more specifically. There's some rose prep or some newer, more tender things that we might want to talk about that we'll talk about next week. But for the most part, yay, Joyce, we don't have to do too much. Exactly. And Monique, thank you for being patient. She says, hi, Joanne and Matt. What is the best lawn care now in the GTA in the fall? I just tuned in, so I do not know if you already discussed this topic yet. It's a popular question. We answered it earlier, but that's no problem. We don't mind answering it again. So you still have time to do a fall fertilizer. Mm-hmm. We definitely lean towards recommending organic. Mm. Matt, but organic tends to break down so slowly. So if you do a fall fertilizer now, end of September, do you even really need to do a winter one?
Yes and no. Yeah, like you were saying, kind of depends on what you do. If we're so close to October in the end, if you do the organic, no. Okay. If you're going to do a synthetic, I probably do it, and then maybe, depending on how the season goes, if we get to the end, you might put it on again, just as we start to freeze, and it'll be there to feed again in the spring when we shouldn't be on our lawns. Right. You'll already have fertilizer there, kind of getting those roots bolstered and activated. Yeah. And
go ahead. Well, I just think is our motivation to really keep the grass growing right now, or is it to feed the roots?
No.
So that's why I kind of lean towards.
And it is to feed the roots.
Right. We want to feed the roots.
Right. So right now we're not going to use high nitrogen in anything. Okay. We're going to look for that phosphorus and that potassium. Okay. And that's the phosphorus is going to build and fatten those root stores. And then your potassium is going to increase all the winter resistances and like heat, drought, stress, all that kind of stuff.
So what are the numbers again?
Yeah. So nitrogen is the first number.
Okay. So you should have, don't use your leftover summer or spring fertilizer with the high first number. Right. Common problem, people. Common issue.
Keep it dry and cool. She'll last till spring.
That's right.
She'll still be good. The next number is phosphorus, so that's all the roots, the down part. We don't use it for flowers like we do for annuals, so it's irrelevant there. But the potassium is the resistances. It's their vitamin C kind of thing. Oh, okay. Their immune system, their resistances, but also increases the efficiency of the uptake of the roots of those nutrients. So spring and summer are high nitrogen, low the other two. The fall and winter are low nitrogen, high the back two of them.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. So Monique, thank you for the question and thank you for being patient. We hope you hung on to hear the answer. So there's we love our segment. This is one of our most popular shows every month because people want to know what to do in the garden that month. I tend to use a lot of Matt's research for my newsletter as well. That'll go out the following week. I know. So sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the podcast. You can get all this information so many ways. So yes, it's free advice. It's knowledgeable advice. We tried and true tested. And we're getting the hook.
So thank you, Ron, Ray, Rachel, Winnie, Wallace, Carla, Elise, Helga, Joyce, and Monique for writing in.
Thank you. My goodness.
You to all of our listeners. Thank you, Gary, for producing the show. Follow us on social media. Join us next Monday night. Thank you for tuning in here to Down the Garden Path on Reality Radio 101.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.